Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have with me a returning guest, Mark Timmony. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, yeah,
How
yeah,
are you?
yeah. I'm great. Anytime that we get to chat, particularly on Zoom, I'm feeling good. So I got some ideas and things swirling around my head. Like I said, I'm jealous of your logo.
Excellent.
So definitely be working hard to try and match your tenacity, in terms of that regard. So if you guys don't know, Mark has been on with us before. We had a couple of different episodes come out at the start of season one. We are now in season two. I'm always excited, Mark, we can get somebody back on, particularly for multiple seasons. So I never thought that when you and I talked, in August, that we'd be back here, almost a year later. So it's really
Yeah, no,
exciting that
you're
you
doing
got,
really well. It's exciting.
well, I'm really excited for your novella. I know we talked about novellas before, but I'm really
Mhm.
excited that that you have yours and it's good to go. So
Finally got it out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I
And
know
it's
that
a
feeling.
novella.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So for that first one, what is your novella Starbinder about, and how did you come up with this idea?
Starbinder is about a young girl, Rihanna, and it's about her journey. It's really hard to not to give too much away
I
because the
know that
novella
feeling.
is not very long. Um, Basically, she is, well, born to become a Shalloway Starbinder, which is one of the orders of kind of magic user type order in my world. And if you've read Blood of the Spear, then you would be familiar with the Shalloway Starbinders in there. They're more seers, um, and they don't use the same type of magic that the rest of the magic users, the Suralis or the Witch Covens use. Slightly different, and again, I don't want to give too much away in it, but it has a kind of a science fiction or technology-based edge to what they
Mm.
do. Um, and she's born to a group of people called the Wanderers who were displaced during the Sundering,
Oh, that's cool.
where the realm that they lived in, Nemestrelian, sunk, basically became a sea. The Nemestrelian Sea in the middle of the continent, the split continent of
Mm.
Athme. They don't have a homeland, and they're kind of disparaged by most people, and they wander the land in caravans. It's a little bit like, what gypsies, although I believe that's not a politically correct term anymore, so I shouldn't use that one. Um, but similar to that, the Romany, um, and that the Nemestrelians had a very strong ties with the Starbinders. And there was a prophecy that a Starbinder would be born to lead the Shalloway and the world um, when the Demon Queen comes again and the Emperor and then another Emperos is found,
Mm.
which is what Blood of the Spear and the Eye of Eternity main series is all about. So it's a kind of a prelude to the main series, or a prequel. It's a loose prequel,
Mm.
but it's a introductory story in some ways. Though people who've read Blood of the Spear first and pick it up will get a lot of Easter eggs
Oh, that's
um,
cool.
as well. So yeah, that's kind of what it's about without telling you too much.
I know it's hard with with a novella.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before we got recording, I got one that I'm working on, and it's like it's not that long, so it's
Yeah,
like
it's not that long. I don't want to
yeah,
give too much stuff away.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and well, sorry, the other part of your question is where did I come up with the idea?
Nope, yep.
Yeah, so originally Starbinder was the prologue for the Blood of the Spear.
Oh, okay.
It was much, much shorter than it is now. Um, and yeah, that's I had originally, in fact, it was the first prologue I ever wrote.
Oh wow.
When we're talking about 20 years ago, it ended up on the cutting room floor. I think I wrote about 5 or 6 different prologues before I
Mm.
finally settled on the one that we opened the Blood of the Spear with. Um, so it was originally going to be the starting point for the Blood of the Spear. And then I was thinking, after I'd done the Blood of the Spear, it's a really good idea to have a novella out, something small, and if I can give it away as an ebook to readers as well, that's really cool. What could what could I use, or what could a story be? And then I was thinking about Starbinder and it was one of the reasons that it ended up not being the prologue for Blood of the Spear, was that it's kind of a self-contained story, and it's not directly related to the main characters of the Blood of the Spear.
Mm.
So it kind of felt like odd to have this. Yeah, it gives a
Yeah.
bit of a setup to what has happened and what will possibly happen later. Um, but it's like, well, what's the point of it at the beginning of the Blood of the Spear? There's no real point. But it was something that I really liked.
Mm.
I liked what I'd done. So, and also I'd fleshed the world out a lot more since then. So when I went back to it, my writing style had completely changed as well. I think it was originally omniscient narration, and I now write in type third person. Um, so there was a lot of rewriting to be done, and then fleshing out of different parts and bringing different things into it. Um, so that's kind of where the idea for it came from. It was originally a prologue
Oh, that's
for
cool.
Blood of the Spear.
I think that just
It
goes to
was
show, Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it was also called Starwell originally.
Oh, okay.
And when I was talking to Felix about the cover art, um, he came back as like, let me guess, is the book called Starbinder? And I was like, you know what, it's not, but it should be. So I changed it from Starwell, or the Well of Stars, to Starbinder.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I like it. It's got a Brandon Sanderson-esque,
Yeah.
like title to it. I don't know. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It feels that way to me. It also like too, like the cover also really makes me like everything makes me think like I feel like if you took your name off of it and put Brandon's there, like it would totally fit. Like it was just so weird. I was like, oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Because at first I was like, oh, someone sharing another Brandon Sanderson book, and I saw it was yours in your post. I was like, that's Mark's book. I was like, that looks so
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
I
so it's
love
really,
the cover.
oh, it
It's
looks amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, it looks awesome.
It's a little bit, it's different to what Felix normally does as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the colors for me are really striking and actually quite fitting, funnily enough. So again, like Blood of the Spear, it is a scene from the story.
Oh, cool, cool.
So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Who are we kidding? Felix is a chameleon. He can do anything at this point. Like
I know. Yeah, he is amazing.
I know
Yeah.
he always talks about that, loving to, push the boundaries and learn something new and,
Mm.
work on those skills. And I'm like, I feel that. I'm like,
He's got
writing. I'm
them.
like, yeah,
He's
yeah,
got them
yeah.
in abundance. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's like Dirk Ashton said when they interviewed him on their 2 interviews on Wizards, Wars, and Words. And he was like, he's like, it's not fair that Felix can do all these different mediums and things. He's like, I can only write like a few different ways,
Yeah.
I'm like, I understand that. I'm like, I feel like, writers are envious of, of artists at times to be able
Oh
to,
yeah, absolutely.
you
And
know,
also because I want to be able to pull these scenes out of my head
right,
myself and do
right.
them. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, I'd love to have that scene. I can put it on the website or whatever. It's like, no, I've got
Yep,
to contact Felix and then
yep,
wait a couple of months till he has an opening and save my money so I can pay him for it. And it's
yep,
just like,
yep.
damn it.
Yeah, I did know an
Because,
author years ago that used to do his own. I mean, he took so
oh,
many
yeah.
courses. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
but
Or you could be like Janny Wirtz. She does her
yeah,
covers and
yeah.
she does her internal art, and it's amazing. And
Oh, it
it's
looks
just like,
incredible.
she needs a break from whatever, and she turns to a easel and goes and draws or paints or whatever. And it's just like,
Yeah.
and it's from the world that she's been living in these past. I remember picking up the first Curse of the Mistwraith book back in the 90s.
Mm.
And she's finally coming up on the last book. It's been such a long haul for her, but gosh, they're good, and they're getting a
Yeah.
lot of attention recently as
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
which is great. But so giving her a plug now, go and read The Curse of the Mist Race if you haven't, by Janie Wertz. It's really good.
I'm actually not sure because my mom asked me, she was like, I think I got you one of her books years ago. And I was like, I knew I read one, but because I remember the name and I remembered absolutely loving it. And I'm like, this is the time, Mark, where I get to read like Anne McCaffrey, right?
Yeah,
With book one, where it's been so long that now I get to read that book for the first time again.
yeah, yeah,
And it's like we always talk about
yeah,
that, and I got to do it for book one for Anne McCaffrey. I don't know why I'm blanking. Dragon Song, I think it was. And then for her as well, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like we just discovered that the other day because I was like, I told my mom, I was like, you got to see this. My mom's a interior designer and she got me
yeah,
into art as a kid, and we've always loved her covers and just the art. I mean, she's like, yeah, I got you that. I'm like, did not know that. So I'm really excited because I just got book one again. So yeah, that's
yeah,
really cool. I was really excited to see that, she had such a cool blurb for you, and then you moved to your book cover. So.
yeah. That was amazing. It was, it was completely. I mean, I've known her via the internet for years. I've been reading her books, and I've been a member of her forums on her website. And because I worked in the book trade in Sydney, I had some contacts with HarperCollins, and so I
Hmm.
was able to get early copies of her next release and stuff like that.
Oh,
And I
that's
think at
cool.
one stage, Harper sent me the manuscript of one of the books, and I read it, and I was able to, tell her I was reading it, and also give her some feedback on stuff like that. And
Oh, that's cool.
she's very, very supportive of the writing community, especially the indie community.
Oh yeah, I've seen
And
her all
she's,
over the place.
yeah,
She just seems so
yeah.
nice.
And she's always said, if I can do anything to help, let me know. And I just messaged her. I said, would you possibly be open to reading the book? And if you like it, give me a cover blurb. And she was like, yep, I'm in the middle of the last book at the moment, so I may be slow, but send it through to me. And I did. And she got back to me with a cover blurb, and she really enjoyed it and has spoken about it a couple of times on other
Oh,
podcasts and
that's
stuff since,
awesome.
so which is really nice. Um, so yeah, it kind of blows my mind to see her name on the getting the covers updated, as I was talking to you about earlier, and got the covers updated with her cover blurb on the front of them. So really excited.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's super cool. I just feel like she's one of those people when I think of how like how I would like to treat people and that, like where she's at. And I just think that not everybody does that. And to me, that's just
No,
awesome.
100%. Yep.
And yeah, like I just see more and more people say that about her. And it makes me feel good to be part of the community, with people like that. So I was very, very happy to see that when you had posted it. So that was super
Yeah.
cool. I'm really excited for everybody to see Mark's new stuff. So it looks
Yeah,
awesome.
me too.
So for this second two question. So what approaches did you take with this novella versus your first novel?
Well, yeah, it was interesting because the prologue that I was basing it on was already finished. So what I needed to do is give it a beginning, a middle, and an end. Make sure there was an arc in the story.
Hmm.
So I guess the difference was that it it was well, it was already written. I guess is the main thing I can say to that. Um, so I had to do some rewriting,
Hmm.
but given the amount of work I'd done over the years writing Blood at the Spear, that tended to be fairly easy
Hmm.
to adjust stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I just needed to rearrange what I'd done as a novella, as a prologue, expand it out, and give it some resolution.
Hmm.
One of my readers, she read it the other day and emailed me to say that she loved it, and she hopes to see more of Rihanna in the future,
Mm.
and the Wanderers as well, where she
Oh, that's
comes from,
cool.
and that she felt that the story deserved to be a full novel. No, not just a short novella. There needs to be more, and there is kind of more. So it doesn't finish everything. It leads you into, well, what's next? What happens next? Where does it go from here? And well, that's like 2,500 years later, the Blood of the Spear. Um, and there are reasons behind the time gap, and that are obvious once you read more. um, so I guess the main difference was that I knew the world. There wasn't as much world building I needed to do
Mm.
when I was writing it. I was able to kind of fit it into the stage that was already set. I did have to change the time period, so I had to take into consideration that
Mm.
they were in a time that was coming out of what was known as the Age of Darkness, after the Sundering, um, and reference that. I also was able to reference things that happen in the future that you see in the Blood of the Spear,
Oh, that's cool.
or give the connect the dots between where they were and what they were to what they become in the Blood of the Spear. Um, so I was able to throw those types of things in. I was even able to get a couple of things that were referenced in the Blood of the Spear and never expanded upon. The Ave as a
Mm.
race in this world of Sobia that were referenced in Blood of the Spear, but nobody's actually seen or interacted with any of them in the
Mm.
books. And I was able to bring that into Starbinder a little more. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, I guess the difference was I had something to play off
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
already. Whereas when I was writing Blood of the Spear, there was nothing to play off. It was all brand new. I had to set everything up.
I feel that's why most people do book one and then set up the novella, because the world building is done and half your work is done, depending on how your math is. Yeah, so I definitely have noticed that more and more, and that's where my friend was like, oh, it's interesting that you tried writing novella and it just turned into a novel. And I'm like, well, the world building wasn't done and this and that. So I definitely feel like that's why, I think it's smart. I think particularly with you saying, with marketing and now you have the novella for the newsletter. So
Mm.
I've definitely seen
Yes.
it do really well in the past for people. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. Fingers crossed that it continues with that. Obviously, I'm
I
writing
got
book
some
two
wood
at the
here
moment.
for you, so I'm
Thank
knocking
you.
on
Thank you. Yeah. Knock on wood.
it.
I'm working on book two, and I know it's not going to take me as long as it took me to write book one to write book two. I'm hoping I might have the first draft completed by October,
Oh, that's
um,
exciting.
and then rewrites, unless there are major issues, wouldn't take me that much longer to go through, I don't think. So I'm hoping early next year, book two might
Oh,
come
that's
out, which is
awesome.
a little bit longer than I had planned, and
Mm.
or that is traditional for the indie author field. The indie authors are like, you got to get it out every 6 months. You got to have a new book out, and I'm like, I just don't write that quickly. Maybe my speed will increase as I go along. I did stop and work on the novella. I was like, you know what? I need to get this out. I need to get something quicker. This will be done before book two. So let's get some stuff happening. And I
Yeah,
just got so much over the time writing Blood of the Spear. I created so much lore and history that ended up on the cutting room floor. That there's
yeah,
so
yeah,
much room for other stories. And it's like, well, you can pick this up and it does connect to the main sequence. So there's relevance. So all right, let's go with that, because another prologue that I had written is actually worked in, two of them actually have worked their way into book two.
oh wow.
So with some adjustments and tweaking so they don't read like prologues.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're actually part of the story. So
Oh, that's cool.
uh, yeah, so that's exciting as well for me. I was like, oh, this stuff isn't wasted.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah,
backstory or this history that I'd created that can be used and is
yeah.
relevant and has, so that's exciting. Um, yeah.
I just like that you use stuff off the cutting room floor because I do that all the time. Like I had a
Yeah.
friend, I don't know if I told you where I had a friend who like trashed a whole novel and deleted it. He was like, it's awful. And I'm like, why would you do that? I'm like, why? And
No.
Kelly McCullough had said that. So I love his Fallen Blade series. So again, I talk about it all the time. So listeners, go check out Kelly McCullough Fallen Blade series. And while you're there, might as well pick up Mark's book too. Because you get, because you get a percentage off now because it's Memorial Day sale off of Amazon. So you might as well just do this. But
Yeah.
it was amazing where he was telling me that he had cut his character and then trashed this book, came back to it years later after Webmage, and then was like, oh, I actually have a better idea. And I'm thinking like this amazing character that I love and this this series would never have happened if he had just clicked delete. And I said to my friend, I was like, I go, you might have just deleted Dritz Jordan for me, or
Yeah.
or Randall Thor or somebody, I'm like, why? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm like, just put it somewhere deep and dark and don't worry about it again. But maybe one
Absolutely.
day, it drives me crazy when people, throw that stuff out. It drives, I don't throw out anything.
Yeah, I never
So
never got rid of these things because I didn't feel that they were good enough or that they didn't work in how they were written, although my writing style has changed, so adjustments need to be made now.
yeah.
But it was more a case of, does this work for what I'm doing with the story?
Mm.
And there is so much pushback on prologues from people
Yeah.
these days. I never read them. They're rubbish. They don't,
I love them.
so I love prologues.
Yeah.
No, and they're right. Not all prologues work. I
Yeah.
recently picked up one book and I'm like, this prologue is not grabbing me at all. What am I doing here? Whereas I pushed through it into chapter 1 and I'm like, well, this is really good. But if I'd stopped at the prologue, I wouldn't have gotten here. So,
Yep.
yeah, it doesn't always work. And maybe some people will say that they don't think my prologue worked. One of my editors was like, do you really need this prologue? And I'm like, finish reading the book and come back and tell me if it's not worth it, if the prologue doesn't round out or come. And she came back and she's like, yeah, okay, it works. You've bookended it. So yeah, okay, it works. We'll keep it. Thanks. We will. Good. But I mean, look, it can't all be bad. I had applied for the Independent Fantasy Fund grant that Zach Argyle and his wife Hillary, had put together their first one, and you submit the way they had for the first grant submissions. You sent in 10 pages of your book, and that included my prologue, and I ended up being a recipient of the grant, and
Oh, that's awesome.
they'd read the prologue and they liked what they'd read enough to go, hey, here you go, Mark, congratulations, we'd like to offer you a grant, which is being used in the production costs for book 2. So it can't, yeah, I don't know, you always second guess yourself. But it mustn't be that bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, all these prologues that I'd written basically ended up in my mind a little bit like character sketches in some regards.
That's fair.
And some of the prologue, or one of the prologues, no longer matches how the story went. It changed a lot, but I really like some of the writing in it, so I might be able to use it again later. I might be able to adapt it into something else. So I've kept it. It's in my files. I'm not going to delete it. And then the other 2 more recent prologues that I discarded, I'm like, oh my gosh, this one is flashbacks for one character. And I'm like, yep, taking that. We're going to use this so people understand his backstory. And it will be, the other one is flashback as well for 2 characters that I'm going to be able to bring into the end of the book. So book
That's
2.
cool.
So I'm like, yeah, these were good and they were worthy, but at the beginning of the whole adventure, they didn't quite fit,
Yeah, yeah.
but they fit later. So
You never know
excellent.
when that puzzle piece is gonna fit.
Yeah,
I just think it's
exactly.
better to leave on the table so you could still see where it could
Mm,
fit later than throw it in the
yeah,
trash.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it killed me. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh man. All right. So for that third one, did you find it easier to write? Well, you said it was a little bit easier, right? Because you already
Oh
had
yeah,
your foot in that world. I could only
yeah.
imagine. I mean,
It
yeah,
was easier to write. It
yeah.
was easier to expand as well, and also my I don't know, grasp of story structure has
Mm,
changed a bit as well.
that makes
So
sense.
I will write the scene, and as I'm writing it, I'm really thinking about. I'm not a big one for planning. Like
Mm,
I have points in the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
marks in the story that I want
Yep.
to hit, and the in between is kind of like a little bit of discovery.
Yeah, yeah.
So in some degrees, I'm a bit of a pantser. Um, but I had these points that I wanted to hit in the expansion of the story, and things were just like coming up and appearing as I was going. I'm like, oh yeah, that fits, that works. Oh, I can take this from here. I can reference that. You know, I need something here. There needs to be more oomph. Like there needs to be a fight. There needs to be something. There needs to be some action. That and those things I would never have picked up the first time around
Mm,
when I was writing my first draft of Blood of the Spear. This stuff happened after, when I was looking at what I'd written and considering what was the flow of the story and what was needed to you know engage the reader, but also to make the story more dynamic.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and so that's something that comes to me a lot faster. For instance, I'm writing chapter 3 of book 2 at the moment, and I was working on it yesterday. And I kind of plotted it out a bit. I was like, oh, I don't really know where this is going because it's different to writing book 1. Book 1, my main characters were all together in a group for for
Yeah,
most of the
yeah,
book until the very end. And then they kind of split off and go their separate ways. And so in book 2, they're not all together and they're all off. And I've got to do chapters or tell the story of where they're at and what's going on, as keeping it tight to the overarching story arc, overriding reaching story arc, um, as well as being individual. So I'm like, I don't know
yeah.
how this is working, and like how I'm splitting the chapters up, and who, you get one person in one chapter and the next we go somewhere else and have a look at somebody else. So I'd written points down for what I wanted to happen, what I thought I wanted to happen in this chapter. And as I was writing, and I was doing okay. And then this morning, I was doing my laundry and was thinking about it. And this whole other section has just come to me that feels better
Mm,
and feels right. And kind
mm,
of like I was worrying about it. It's come really quickly.
yeah.
Um, at the exact point I'm at to write next, so I can kind of go in without having to make too
Oh,
many
that's cool.
changes and just pick up. And I found that happening when I was writing or expanding Starbinder.
Mm,
Um, that that sort of stuff came to me a lot faster than it did writing the first draft of the Blood and the Spear. It's so I've changed as a writer. I guess I've grown
yeah,
um,
yeah.
a bit. There is more planning involved to a degree, but at the same time, there's that spontaneity that just keeps coming up out of the subconscious. That's
Yeah, yeah.
coming, you know, working away somewhere in the back of my brain, and connections are being made that I'm not aware of. And it's just like, yep, here, yeah, it's this. I've still got to do the work and actually get it onto the page, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's like, yeah, wow, it's yeah, exciting.
It happens to me every day at school because like the night before
Yeah,
I'll be like, I'll plan ahead and then I wake up in
yeah,
the morning and then I have an idea and it's so much better And then
Mm.
my poor co-teacher, sorry, Mike, if you're listening to this. So I go in and then I'm like, we got to change this. He's like, what? I'm like, this is better. And usually it's like, yeah, that is better. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't think of it yesterday. Probably because it was after school and then we were tired.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I feel like that's how writing is. Sometimes you're just like,
Yeah.
you
Your
know,
brain just works on it in the background. Yeah.
yeah. And like, if I feel like I do the same thing. I agree with it. Do like a loose outline. Like I know that these things have to happen, but at the in between, I think I just need. Otherwise, I have too much of an outline, and then I get
Mm.
bored. First of all, I have
Yes.
to.
That was my big thing. I mean, Blood of the Spear was not the first novel I wanted to write ever. I had wanted to write another one when I was in high school, and I basically plotted the entire thing out, every single chapter. And by the time I'd done that, I was like, oh, well, I've written in my head now. I'm bored.
Yeah.
I don't want
What's
to
the
go back
point?
and
Yeah.
flesh it out.
Yep. Yep.
I work better having particular points. So what my plan is I'm going to take some time and go through each character's story arc and just make sure I've got the main points that I want each one to hit in this book. Like I've gotten to the point where I know where they're at the end of each book.
Mm.
But I don't always know the parts in between
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
beginning and the end. So I need to hit some specific, yep, I definitely want this to happen. I definitely want that to happen. And then we can aim towards it. And also because there are so many POV characters now, Kyle and Darian are my main still, and they need to get the lion's share of the chapters. I need to work out, well, over how many chapters can I tell
Mm.
their story? And over how many chapters have I got to tell the story of Megara or Savani? And that also changes how much freedom, I guess, I have to allow the story that they're going through to
Yeah.
expand. That being said, writing Starbinder, it did want to explode into a novel. It did
Mm.
want to get bigger, and I kind of put my foot down. It was like, nope, 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 no. It can't be a novel. It's a novella. I don't have time to write an entire novel. I've got to get
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
book 2. So yeah, it had exploded a lot, and I cut it right back. And I'm happy with where I cut it to. And what it is, it's just a snapshot. It's a one night adventure,
Mm.
events that happen in one evening from dusk to nightfall, and the stuff that goes on. But there's
Oh,
like a
that's
lot to
cool.
unpack in it. Yeah.
Now, so I forgot to ask you this earlier, but now I really am interested.
Mm.
Could you possibly in the future see this character and this group of people with the Wanderers? Could you see it as like like a whole series 2,000 years, before Blood of the Spear?
Uh, maybe. I will say that you do see Rihanna again.
Mm.
You do see the Wanderers again, although unless you've picked something up in Starbinder, then you may not realize that you're seeing them again.
Mm.
Um, and there is a standalone novel I have in my head that starts 18 years before Blood of the Spear,
Oh, that's cool.
about Rihanna,
Mm.
and it continues, which is really weird to say. So yeah, 2,500 years later. However, um, there is a uh, you find out pretty early in Starbinder there. One of the things the Starbinders do is anybody who's read Terry Brooks, the Shannara Chronicles, and the Druids who go into the Druid sleep
Mm.
and then wake up again and they haven't aged 100 years later. There's a similar type of thing
Oh,
for the
that's cool.
Starbinders. So there's a similar type of thing there. So Rihanna will be seen again later and is involved in the Blood of the Spear as well. And
Oh,
when you
that's
get to
cool.
the end of Starbinder, you actually understand how that is possible.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
but yeah, there's an idea for a standalone book with her. set 18 years before Blood of the Sphere.
Oh, that's cool.
But when do I write it?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
found that I can't really work on two stories at once. I have to focus on one at a time. So while I was doing Starbinder, book 2 was on hold, and it's only just been picked up again now that basically I finished almost all the production on Starbinder. So the ebook's done, the manuscript is completed, it's been edited, it's been the copy edit's been done, and the proofing's been done. The ebook file is available. I've even got the files for a print version, so it will be
Mm.
available to buy in paperback and a
Oh,
small
that's awesome.
for those who want it, a physical copy. Yeah, well, that will be available shortly. I'm just waiting on the cover design to be completed. Well, like it's been done, but it was originally only going to be ebook, so we only did enough for an ebook cover. So I need the wraparound
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
now, and Sean, who's my cover designer, is working on that. I had spoken to Felix about extending the artwork out, which he said he could do, but he didn't think would be 100% really necessary. So I spoke to Sean, and Sean's got an idea of what we can do for a wraparound for the back cover. And that the idea is that whatever he does for that, we will probably keep for the design format of any future novellas I might do
Mm.
for the series as well.
Oh, that's cool. That'd
So
be really cool. That would be really cool. Yeah, like I think
yeah,
it's cool when people do, like, I think like Hannah, like HM Long, like you know, with her series, it's cool how each cover is different, but they also match. Like, I you know me, like I love graphic design, so those little things here and there like really draw me in. So that'd be really
yeah,
cool. I'm
yeah.
sorry, guys, online. If you guys don't know, so we're talking about Felix Ortiz. So if you have not seen Mark's book, you need to go see it. I've talked about it before. It's definitely my favorite cover, particularly indie cover. I'm blowing it up at some point when I get my basement redone, and framing that one along with a couple of other Felixes. I just, when I see it still, like, hold on. I was gonna say I actually have it propped right up on my bookshelf.
Excellent. Yeah.
But yeah, like when I have trouble coming up with something, I look at your book cover and I go back
Mm.
through and I'm like, okay, I'm good now. And
Yeah.
it's one of those that just draws me into the genre, and I'm really excited. I got a couple of reviews that I'm about to get done. And then once I get those done, I'm on yours. So I'm really excited for the summer. So yeah,
Yes.
but I just
Yes.
constantly, like, I keep looking over there and I'm like, I can do this, after I'm like, I don't think I can anymore. But yeah, and you're talking about Sean. So for our audience,
Sean
so
T.
you'd be
King. Yeah.
Sean T. King. So if you guys have not seen their work, you know, make sure you go and check them out, because they're absolutely brilliant, and they are helping, you know, along with authors such as Mark here, are helping to restructure our indie fantasy genre. So they've been doing an amazing job, and yeah, I absolutely love their work. So you guys will too.
Yeah, for sure. They're great. I call it a anytime somebody asks me about the cover, it's like, yep, it's another Ordis King production.
That's funny. I like that a lot. Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to use that in the future. I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna give you credit for it, but I'm definitely stealing that one. So I guess you kind of answered number 4. So did you? So I actually am curious about this for world building. So you had the world building, you know, for Blood of the Spear. So would you say you just updated the world building based off? I know you went back in time, but did you just update some of the
Mm.
world building, and did
Yeah.
you add the wanderers then for this one?
No, the Wanderers were already a thing for the original
Did
prologues.
you
Like
just
that's this
expand
is
then?
yeah. So I
Okay.
didn't even have to expand them
Oh,
much at
cool.
all. What I needed to do is change the references to or the type of magic that was being used, because
Oh,
the
cool.
Shalloway magic, like I said, has a very um it's that whole Arthur C. Clarke thing when that a significantly advanced technology should be
Mm.
is probably indistinguishable from magic.
Yep. Yep.
And it links into a theme in this whole story that humanity is not native to this planet
Mm.
that they're on, and they come
Cool.
from a starfaring civilization.
Oh, that's cool.
So while the majority of humanity has forgotten that, this order of the Shalloway Starbinders has not, and they have, to a degree, in different forms, kept that alive within their order and in their strongholds,
Mm.
um, and also utilized um, the magic that's native, that that humanity has discovered in
Mm.
this planet. That's not to say there is no magic in anywhere else in the universe, but
Yeah.
humanity hadn't had its eyes open to how to touch it before,
Hmm.
before they came here, and now that is a thing. So there's a
That is
it's a
cool.
kind of a merge or a melding of that magic and the technology, for the Starbinders. Um, and because of the Sundering and the War of the Summoners before that, a lot of all that stuff has been forgotten, um, and and because of the magic humanity discovered when they came here and the civilization that the Summoners had built was so advanced and so far beyond what even the starfaring ancestors of humanity had, that the technology was no longer needed, kind of thing. Then, when everything collapsed during the War of the Summoners and the subsequent Sundering, um, they've been reduced to a quasi-medieval state.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, the Shalloway still remember, although
Mm.
they are much reduced, um, from what they were previously,
Mm.
which is all part of what Rihanna is involved in now. So, or gets
Sounds
called.
really cool.
So yeah, so I didn't need to do a lot of changes, a
Yeah.
lot of reworking. Um, there was a particular, like I said, it was omniscient narration. Um, there was a slightly different Star Master of the Order of the Summoners,
Mm.
Order of the Starbinders. Changed him around. Changed the place that he. Okay, so there was a very specific place that he was working from in the original prologue, which in the change to novella, I updated to Aleth Tor, which is the Cradle of the Stars,
Oh, that's cool.
um, the actual uh, main stronghold of the Starbinders, which is in the middle of the Black Sands Desert in Amaria. And that wasn't a thing when I wrote the prologue. It was only as I went through writing the Blood of the Spear later,
Mm.
that I came up with that. And the place that he was at in the prologue will actually be in book 2,
Oh, that's cool.
as Alanafel, which is another outpost of the Starbinders.
Oh,
Um,
that's
uh,
cool.
yeah, which we've just heard for the first time in chapter 2 that I just wrote in book 2.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, so there was tweaking, bringing things into line, understanding exactly what the Starbinders were more defined now that I had written more of the Blood of the Spear, brought the world building into focus a bit more, um, knowing what they were working with, um, understanding the relationship between the void, so Desmata, which is the power of the void, and Asai, which is the power of the light of the eye, or the eye of eternity, which is the series name, and is based on um, the magic is Asai. It's an energy of creation of and Desmata is the antithesis of that. It comes from the void. Um, So understanding more of the creatures of the void,
Hmm.
demons, the Ave or the Dash Ave, who are Ave who follow the void and wield Desmata. Stuff like that. I brought all that sort of stuff into it. So it's a tiny book, right? But
Yeah,
there's like a lot of reference to things without, and I don't feel it overwhelmed because I've been told it's a really good introduction to the greater world. So you can pick that up as your starting point, or you can read The Blood of the Spear first and then go and
Oh,
read
cool.
this and
That's my other question.
pick up Easter eggs that from things that were referenced in Blood of the Spear. You get a little bit more answers, or there is a gasp moment at the end of it for people who've read Blood of the Spear.
Oh, okay.
So that worked really well. I was really pleased that that still worked. So because it's so hard when you write it, because I know what it is, right? It's like, have I hidden this? Is this a thing that people will be like, oh, I didn't know that was? And my editor had her gasp moment, and Rowena,
Oh, that's
who did
cool.
a review for me, it was just like, I had no idea until the end,
Oh,
until
that's
you said
cool.
it. And I'm like, yes.
That's
So
got to feel really good.
it does. Yeah, it is good.
That's awesome. I have a lot of those moments in my book one, so I hope I can hit them. So I
Yeah, cool.
definitely know that feeling. Yeah. So yeah, that's really cool. You got me really excited now. So I'm like I said, I have just a couple of reviews to get done this month. I'm not doing very many. I'm pretty much just doing. I did like two just because there were people that I'm just doing people I had on the podcast, to be quite
Yeah.
honest. And people like yourself, no offense to anybody, if you want me to do them, I just have people like Mark who have been with me for a while and who I really want to read books, and now I get an excuse to put content on the channel as well as try and get their books out there. So I know people keep asking me. I'd be more than happy to, but I have people that like Mark who I would like to help first, and have promised spots to.
Well,
So
that's good. I'd be really keen on what you think, to hear what you think.
yeah. Well, I'm just so excited to to get to talk to you about it, and I also want to do spoiler episodes too. So we'll post it everywhere and talk for the first 10 minutes. That way people know it's a spoiler. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that from a writer's perspective. So I'm hoping to do some dissection there in the future. So I'm really excited. Yours is one of the first ones on my list. So if you're interested, I'd love to set that up at some point after
Yeah,
the
for
summer when
sure.
I'm good to go. You and I are so similar, in terms of things. And I know some people in the audience are like, did Dan steal the void from Mark's book? I did not. I had no idea that
No,
Mark
it's
was
like
doing that. And
I
it
had it
sounds
for
similar, but
ages. And I
yeah.
was like, been working on this for 20 years, and then I read the first Stormlight Archive by Sanderson, and he's got the void in, and I'm like,
Yep.
no.
Yep.
But yeah,
Well,
and
so
then I
did
was like, oh, should I
oh
change it to the Abyss instead?
yeah.
But
I thought
then
that.
the Abyss is Dragonlance for those who've read Dragonlance. I
That's
was just
funny.
like,
It is.
no, I'm just going to keep it as the void. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, it
It's
just
kind of
goes to
interchangeable.
show that how you, myself, and Brandon both have like the same thing, and it's similar, but at the same time, we each went our own separate way with it. And I think it's a really cool study on that. That people always say like, "Oh, they're gonna steal my idea," and it's like, are they really though? Like, unless they steal your book, they're not stealing your idea because you're gonna write that book, differently. And I've always wanted to do that. Like you and me, we have like come up with like the same outline but write the book. I just think it would be an interesting like exercise, but
Yeah.
nobody's got time for that. So but one of these days
Yeah, it's like
I
not
want to
not
do
not
it.
when you're good publishing a series. It's like there are people
Exactly.
who do want to read the next book, Mark. It's like, yeah, cool,
Yep.
yeah, gonna do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But like,
fair.
even the name of the series, The Eye of Eternity, right? Like I first came across that in Janny Wirtz's book, A Sorcerer's Legacy. And I
Mm,
was like, The Eye of Eternity. What? That just like it was like poetry to me. I loved
yeah.
it. It made my imagination come alive. So I've always remembered it. And
Oh,
I'm
that's
like, that's
cool.
going to be my series, The Eye of Eternity.
Mm,
And then there was a author by the name of Maggie Fury who wrote a book called The Eye of Eternity in the early 2000s, I think.
mm.
And then World of Warcraft named a battleground the Eye of Eternity. I'm just like, bloody hell, all these people are using Eye of Eternity before I finished my book and got it out there. And
Yeah.
so then I wasn't going to use it. And then I got to the point where it was just like, you know what? It doesn't matter. There's like, I think there is an author who has got a fairly she's an indie author. I think it's ML Spencer, actually, the Dark Mage series. I was reading that, and her two protagonists are very similar to names to Carl and Darian. And I'm just like, they're my half brothers in the Blood of the Spear. And I'm like, no, I have to change it now. And then I decided, you know what? I did try, actually. I tried changing Darian's name because it was a little too close to, it was exactly the same as hers, I think. And it just didn't work for me. I couldn't read the new name I'd written. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, I've done that. Yeah.
Darian. So I'm like, no, I've gone back to it. It's a different story. They
Yeah,
are
yeah.
different characters. There's going to be some overlap, and there's just the way that the zeitgeist works, that people
Yeah.
just tap into this creative energy, and some things overlap. So
Well, I mean, I just think that there's like, my friend was saying, he's like, there's only so many words in the English language. Eventually, he's
yeah,
like, how many books have people written over, our lifetime, if you will, as a species? And I'm like,
yeah,
it's true, especially now with social media and, you look at, because I was talking to my friend about that, where you said the void. I was like, oh my gosh, and we had discussed it with my best friend, and I was like, he's like, well, you guys have similar reading interests, and things you really love. And, when you're talking about, the flame and the void from Wheel of Time, he's like, there, or he's like Terry Goodkind,
yeah,
with the void, he's like, there's only so much, you can do. And he's like, you and Mark are both, in a lot of ways paying homage to a lot of those things
yeah,
that you've read. And I said, well, that's true. So I said, we'll probably have, very similar things. He's like, you guys just be book brothers. I was like, that's fair. That's fair.
yeah,
So yeah, so I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
definitely.
It'd be interesting if people did a study, like a research study on that, like why that is. I would totally read that study. I just think it'd be interesting. But all right, so for my favorite part, because like I said, I'm really interested in novellas. I can't ever seem to write one. They just turn into novels. But what is your advice for somebody who is trying to write a novella?
Yeah, that's a really difficult one for me because I hadn't planned to write from scratch a novella. It was the whole, I've got a prologue and I can expand that into a short story, which is basically, it could be a novella. Beginning, middle, and end. Have a beginning, middle, and end. Keep it tight. I think um, um, what's her name? She does Writing Excuses with Brandon, Mary
Oh my gosh.
Robinette Cowell, Mary
I
Robin.
listen to them every day on the way to school.
Yeah.
I know what
Oh,
you're
I'm
talking
so
about.
sorry. I know who she is,
I'm
and
blanking
she
too.
does. Yeah,
Mary, it was a Mary
Mary
Robinette? Robinette?
Robinette
I thought it was
Cowell.
Mary. I think so, yeah.
Yeah. She did a lecture in Brandon's creative writing course about novels, and
Oh, okay.
she talks about novellas and
Oh,
the
okay. I didn't know that.
difference between, because she does really well with novellas. She does a lot of them. And look, to be honest
Oh.
with you, I didn't listen to her full talk because I wasn't writing from scratch. I was like, no, this little prologue has a beginning, it has a middle and an end. And I just want to expand it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I just went. I'm very much self-taught with writing. So maybe I'm doing things wrong. Maybe there are easier
I
ways or better ways to
think we're
do
all doing
things.
it
I
wrong.
don't know. But I just kind of follow the feel of the story I want to read. Like I said to you, it did want to expand. It wouldn't want to go further. More characters came into it. And that's the other thing. Apparently, you meant to keep it tight in terms of characters, not a lot of characters, or not a lot of characters you spend time with.
Yeah, yeah.
But as the story progressed, it became necessary, to my mind, for these characters to come into it. So it did expand a little bit there, and it could have gone more longer. There was in my mind, a question mark about the introduction of a particular scene towards the end. my proofreader questioned it as well. She had the same question I had, so I think she and I are probably right. But some of my other readers felt that the story arc for this character was left hanging and
Mm.
needed to be resolved or have a resolution. So I put it in, but it didn't make no sense. And my main editor, AJ Spedding, when she read it, I asked her about it. She felt that it worked.
Mm.
She felt that it was fine. Um, so I'm kind of like, and nobody else has questioned it, to be honest. So maybe it does. They haven't said it to my face. Um, so I wanted to give some resolution to his arc, as kind of hint that it isn't over, but this is where we're at, and it's not
Mm.
just, you're not just hanging.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I put that in, and just tried to contain the story. I didn't let it go too far. Um, it's a case of knowing the direction you're going and making sure you're keeping the horse on track. If the horse wants to wander off, it's like, no, no, you pull the reins back and you redirect them back in the right
yeah, yeah,
direction. That's the best um, analogy I have for it, I guess. Make sure you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Keep your characters, keep it to minimal characters. There are too many characters in it, is the advice I've been given. Um, and yeah, just tell a story the best way you can, and make sure it's something you would want to read. Because I think that's the most important thing for
mm.
any story you might write. If it's not something you want to read, if you're bored in any part of it, and not just bored because you've been going over it 100 times and have reread the same thing, but you're just like, this is, you're actually saying to yourself as you're writing it, this is boring.
Yeah,
This doesn't feel like it's going anywhere, or there's something missing. Well, then there probably is. Your
yeah,
subconscious is telling you that. So, put it down, think about it. How can you do something differently? I often find that with writing, if I get writer's block, it's because I've written myself into a corner and I'm
yeah, yeah,
following the story in a way it shouldn't be going.
yeah,
And I'll go back 3 or 4 pages or to the start of the scene that I'm in and may completely discard what I've written and take it a different direction or from a different angle, and it starts flowing again. So I think, listen to yourself if you're feeling this isn't working. Maybe it does need the introduction of another character, but try and keep it
yeah.
minimal, um, and keep your beginning, middle, and end really relevant.
I think that's great advice. Like I said, before we started filming, I just got this one thing I just want to get out. It's just a novella. It was a short story for um oh why can't I think of what it's called? Like the collection of short stories. Why can't I think of the word?
Anthology.
Thank you. So I got invited to do an anthology, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just do this quick story. And I was like, oh, that would be such a cool
Yeah, I had
novella.
a
Oh,
friend of mine was also talking about doing an anthology of Australian indie science
oh,
fiction
that'd be
fantasy writers,
cool.
right?
That'd
And
be
I was like,
cool.
oh my God, an anthology, that's a short story. What do I have that could be a short story? Do I have a short story? And that was one of the things as well that I was thinking about, which is where the idea for the standalone story with Rihanna set
Mm.
18 years before the start came from. It was originally in my head a short story, and it has expanded to a novel, to a full standalone novel that is connected to the rest of the series, but is not a series itself. And I'm just like, I can't help. I like big books. I cannot lie.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it's just like when I
Fair.
think of story, I think of saga.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
I don't think of short. So yeah, it's keep the novella, keep it small, keep the cast small, keep the and also just with my own stories as well, just accept that there is a world around what you're writing.
mm,
That just because this particular story has ended, stuff is still going to happen to the characters later.
yeah,
It
yeah,
happened to the characters before you got to them.
yeah,
Other things are going on elsewhere. It's like you're taking a snapshot and encapsulating this event. Like we all have things that happen to us in little incidents that might go for a
mm,
couple of days, but they resolve,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's like it's what you're doing with a novella. It's like, what's
Yeah.
the story? What's the thing that's happened to you, and how are you going through it? And that's what you're telling. And if it's a piece of the puzzle, it fits into the bigger picture. Sure, it's one of the things that Robert Jordan always said, that he had planned to finish the Wheel of Time and have it that, yeah, well, that story's finished, but there's other stuff going on. He won't write the story about it. The world keeps going after he's finished telling the story he said in it. And it's like, yeah, the world definitely keeps going. And I
Mm.
know where it's going at the end of Starbinder. And readers will see some of that in Blood of the Spear and in the standalone novel that I will get out at some stage. Um, and it's going to be there. I mean, I had one reader who I work with. She's a buyer of children's fiction for the company I work for, and she's just like, I want more. I want more right away. She wanted, she's like, are we going to see any more of this? Does this happen? What's happened with that? And I'm just like, oh, well, yeah, you do see this and you will see more of that. And yeah, she just wanted more. So,
Sounds like a perfect novella to have attached to
yeah,
your newsletter, and
yeah,
for people to sign up then. Like that's a really great, I think that's a great
yeah,
strategy and a really great sign personally. I'm ready. Like I'm like, okay, let's do this thing. I've already signed up for your newsletter, but I'm ready.
yeah,
I'm ready. I just, yeah, that's where I must have just missed it. So then when I had seen, you were like kind of peeked the cover the other day on social
yeah,
media, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, that newsletter, you're
yeah. I
you're
was
one of the few
really
people that goes to my author email. Everybody else goes to my
right.
private email, because I just had business stuff, but that one went right in there and I was like, how did I miss that? So I like went down
Yeah,
and
yeah.
looked at it right away. So I was really excited.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Now just read Blood of the Spear and then read Starfighter. Not that other people need to do it that way, but yeah,
I prefer to do that. So like I've been reading the Lead Child books. So I like to read them. I do like to read things in publication work as a writer because I like to learn
mm,
along with the author, because I just think I get more out
yeah,
of it, and I'm seeing where Lee Child with the Killing Floor then went back and did The Enemy, which is like not a prequel, but it's before Killing
right.
Floor and like
Mhm.
right before. And I just, I just feel like I learn more that way. So definitely gonna be reading this one first,
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm definitely ready for, to read Starbinder as well. So,
yeah,
all right. Well, they're totally blanking on this one. Oh yeah, yeah. So we already talked about, Sean T. King did your lettering.
yeah, yeah.
And then, Felix Ortiz did your art. So
Mhm.
if you guys have not checked out by now, Mark's book Starbinder, definitely do it. I mean, absolutely looks amazing. Like I said, to me, it looked, I was so shocked. It just looks like a Brandon Sanderson book to me. I think it just captures the genre really well, and I think you're going to get a lot of, you know positive feedback on it. And I liked how it matched the feeling
Yeah.
of, Blood of the Spear, but
It
also
was, you know,
did its own thing, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
Artwork and
it
cover
was
design are a significant investment
yep, yep,
in producing a book, and there are routes that you can go that are cheaper than others. Felix and Sean aren't particularly cheap, but I think they're worth their weight in gold in
yeah, yeah,
what they bring. And when I was thinking about a cover for this, I was considering going totally different route for this because it's not part of the main series, although it's loosely connected. And then other people were like, "Oh no, it should be the same." And I'm like, you know what? I just love what they did with Blood of the Spear. So okay, and because again, it was originally only going to be a cover for an ebook. It wasn't as pricey as what was required for Starbinder, uh, for Blood of the Spear. But that is expanding out now as well. So but that's okay because I think it's worth it, and I really
yeah,
love it. Like it's not a wow action-packed scene, but like the colors and just the actual scene that is in the book is just like, yeah, that's the scene. That's Rihanna. Yeah, I fucking love it. Excuse my French. Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. We speak French on here quite often,
Oh,
so.
good. Yeah, no. Yeah, I really, really like it. It encapsulates perfectly the world as well. I mean, one of the things that when in the process, Felix will start, gets talks to me about the book and talks about different scenes and characters and what things look like, and we'll go away and start working on it and then sends drafts back. And as he gets closer towards finished product, we then involve Sean in the emails as well, because Sean's going to be coming in with the lettering and the design on it. And he asked for feedback and stuff, and Sean was like, "Oh, it's got a kind of a science fiction feel in that sky, sort of thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's not entirely inaccurate
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in it," which is like, really, that's interesting. Um, didn't realize that about your story. I'm like, yeah, and because the world Sobia has a ring. They call it the Sormalene span, and it glitters in the night sky, bands the heavens across the northern across the middle. So basically, where Athme, the continent they're on, is the southern continent. So they see the Sormalene span is in the northern hemisphere,
Oh, that's
crossing
cool.
east through west. So that's a particular thing. That's a aspect of this world. And past the Sormalene span is the nebula that they call the Eye of Eternity. And
Oh, that's
um,
cool.
the legend has it that that is the actual center of the universe. So this particular um, planet is very close to the center of all creation. And the nebula, that is the Eye of Eternity, or the light of the eye comes from physically and metaphysically, is visible from this planet. And it's like, yep, cool. So
That's super cool.
yeah, put all of that in there. It's all
Yeah.
part of the and then I get some people like, it's a good book, but there's so much lore. But then, I worked really hard to avoid info dumping,
Hmm.
and have been praised by some people for it. And that the story is really character driven. So, you know, uh, I've got a glossary at the back, which is really hefty. Some people like it and some people really intimidated by it. But I don't think a glossary necessarily needs to be read from start to finish.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just use it
It's
when you
like
need to.
if I come to a term in a book and I don't know what it is like, is there a glossary? Oh, there is a glossary. What's that? Oh, right. Okay, cool. And I go back. And that was one of the things I loved about the Wheel of Time and
Yeah,
the Eye
yeah,
of
yeah.
Eternity when I got it. It's like there's
I
this
like the
glossary. It's
Malazan
like
Book of the Fallen
amazing.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, to me, that's exciting. It's like, oh, this
Yeah,
is
it's like
really,
buckle up. Like,
yeah, it's like this is
yeah,
a rich world. This has
yeah,
got
yeah.
stuff in it that I'm not going to know about.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It really doesn't seem, I mean, it doesn't seem hefty to me. I mean, it seems
Yeah.
like, pretty on point for, and yeah, it
Yeah,
seems
it
pretty on point for the genre. I
may
mean,
seem bigger in ebook format, I guess.
probably. I feel like
Yeah.
everything does in ebook format. That's why
Yeah.
I have trouble reading an ebook because I'm like, oh, I just read this, and I'm like, I
I'll
think I
read
want to
it on
turn
my
off.
iPad.
I think I want to like turn off the percentages, like if I can, and instead of seeing that, because I just want to read, but and get
Yeah.
through chapters. But I feel like it throws me off when I've read 10 pages, but then it's only 5. Like it just throws me off.
I've gotten used to looking at the how many more minutes are in this chapter,
Oh, that's a good
because
one.
when I'm reading a physical book, I can like flip to see when's the next chapter coming up and be like, oh, it's not very far away, can say, oh, it's 3 or 4 pages. But in an ebook, it's like, I've got no idea how far away it is. I don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
location means. Location, that means nothing to me.
yeah,
But if it says and because the reading time is obviously based on how quickly you've been turning pages,
yeah,
and they're like, yep, it's like you've got another 3 minutes in this chapter. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I've got 3 minutes to finish this chapter
mm,
before I have to want to go and do something else, or need to do something else. So I'm like, yep, cool, that's a good thing to look at.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like that, and
Mm.
that's something. I do have an actual Kindle. I think I've got a Paperwhite, but I actually find I prefer to read on the Kindle app on my iPad, and that's where I see the um, time left in chapter stuff. Though I'm sure the
Yeah, yeah.
Paperwhite has something similar on it, but I just am not
I
familiar.
that's what I started reading. Kindle was on iPad. They gave me back in Arizona, and I flew through so many. I flew through David Degliash's his like the Half Work series. I forget what it's called, but it was brilliant. And book one was brilliant, like absolutely brilliant. And I flew through it on the iPad, and then on my phone, I was like, oh, it's just kind of small. And yeah, like the Kindle too. Like I got like a kind of bigger, like the Paperwhite. And I thought, oh, it'll be fine because it's bigger than my phone. But I was like, no, I think I just miss it on the iPad. And I don't have
Yeah,
an iPad. So I'm like, oh, I'm like, now I gotta get an iPad. And I was
yeah, I
like, or
need
I
to
could just get the
upgrade mine.
paperback.
Mine's
Yeah.
really old, and it's actually slowing down a lot. So I have to
Yeah,
wait
yeah.
for it to load. Once it's loaded, it's fine, but like the wait time. But
Yeah.
I love having it on the iPad and on my phone because they sync.
Yep.
And if I'm somewhere, it's like, oh, I've got like 2 minutes. I don't have my iPad here. I've got my phone. I just pull it out. I can just read a couple of pages on the phone,
Yep.
put it away, open the iPad. The iPad syncs to where I was up to and go back to it. It's like, cool. Got a little bit of a snapshot done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Easy.
It is nice when you're at like a doctor's office or something. You're like, oh, I forget.
Yeah.
I usually like the paperbacks
Yeah.
when I'm traveling somewhere. I'm home, I like my Kindle. My wife's like, well, the whole point of the Kindle was to travel. I'm like, I'm just afraid it's gonna break, and I like it, so I don't want it to break, even though I have a case for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just used to the paperbacks, I guess. I'm old in that regard. I just
No, I
don't
am
like
too. Don't
feeling
get me wrong.
it.
I never thought I'd turn to ebooks ever. When
Yeah.
they first came out, I'm like, give me an actual physical book.
Yep.
But I am a convert. To ebooks, I am a convert. And I like being able to carry my entire library with me wherever I go.
It is nice. That's the one thing where I'm like, oh, like we were traveling somewhere, I was just not really in the mood, and I was trying to get something read, and
Yeah.
because I was like my minutes for that day, because I've been trying to get better at that, because writing, like I was saying before, writing's been hard to read at the same time. I'm like, I got to keep reading in order to do X, Y, and Z, and so I've been trying to do like 30 minutes a day at least. So I was going through. I think I read some of three different books, but I got like 5 pages or 5 minutes, whatever it was, done for a couple of different books. But it was nice because I got to flip flop. Whereas otherwise, I would just have the one book on me, and I wouldn't be able to do that. And then I probably wouldn't have read for 30 minutes. So it is
Yeah,
nice to have the whole library at your disposal. But
for
yeah.
sure.
All right. Well, for that last one there, obviously, your Starbinder novella is out for your newsletter. Any other news and updates for that project or any other current projects you're working on?
I guess that there will be physical copies of Starbinder
I'm
available
excited about
shortly.
that.
Yeah, so they are coming. There'll be, and because it's a novella, so they're not going to be really large. So it will actually be a small size. My Blood of the Spear is hardcover and trade paperback format only. Yeah, the paperback same size as the hardcover basically. So the paperback small of Starbinder and a small hardcover of Starbinder will be available at Amazon and Book Depository, and hopefully the Broken Binding. I have to email them when it's
Ooh.
available and let them know, because they do have signed book plates from me as well. So when you buy
Oh, okay.
the Blood of the Spear from them, they put a signed book plate in for you, and hopefully they will be able to do the same with Starbinder. Um, that's coming. A new edition of Blood of the Spear is coming too, in that there will be, the only change is that there are going to be chapter icons added. A slight update to the cover. We're going to have Janny Wirtz's cover quote on the front of it. My publishing company has a logo and stuff now, so they'll go on the spine and things like that. And the hardcover is being updated to have an actual hardcover case. That will be thematically the same throughout the rest of the entire series, so including Starbinder. So the hardcover Starbinder will have a case, and I'm really excited to share that when we get it finished. And otherwise, I'm working on book 2 as we speak. If you want a copy of Starbinder and ebook, sign up to my newsletter, and you're welcome. Email will have the link to download it on for EPUB or Mobi versions. Yeah, I promise not to spam you.
I don't
I've
get a
been
lot from
sending
you.
out.
I get them every once in a
You need
while,
to
but
check your spam filters then. They should be going out every fortnight, but I am scaling back so I can focus more on writing book 2. So once a month, newsletter will come out, maybe twice if I've got something new or really exciting to share. I'm planning to put little more snippets that aren't spoilers if I can in things. Your newsletter subscribers will always get first glimpse of the cover even before it's been revealed publicly. And all the newsletter subscribers got access to Starbinder before it was announced.
it looks so good. I'm really excited. I don't know if I can wait. I don't know if I can wait. I might have to skip ahead to Starbinder and then come back. I'm
well,
gonna try
maybe
it.
there is going to be signed and numbered hardcovers of Starbinder available for you directly as well, which will be notified when it's available through the newsletter. So unfortunately, postage overseas is expensive, but it's a smaller book, so it won't be as expensive as The Blood of the Spear was. But that is happening.
Well, I'm excited to get both of those. My wife's gonna be like, "Why do you have 2 copies?" I'm like,
I'll have to send you
but
another
it's
one.
different though. It's gonna be
It is different. And the inside, take the dust jacket off, will have a different.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm really excited about. I'm like,
and when I send out those directly, you get a bookmark, and there are bookmarks for Starbinder.
I had a friend came recently, and I have that bookmark set aside separately, protected. So he goes, "Why is this bookmark by itself?" I said, "Have you seen this bookmark?" I said, "Nobody touches that." But I said, "It doesn't go in books." I said, "It just sits there and it looks pretty."
Wait 1 second, and I've got something to show you. Hold on. Exclusive. Okay, 1 minute. Hold on.
I'm so excited. So again, for our YouTube audience, so I have Mark's book here, and it's absolutely incredible. So I'm really excited to start this for my first summer read and review for this upcoming summer. And I tried pulling up my email to show you Starbinder, but for some reason it's not popping up. So make sure you subscribe to Mark's newsletter. That way you can see what his book looks like, because it looks absolutely incredible.
So I did update those bookmarks a little bit with Blood of the Spear on the back of them. Right. Blood of the Spear,
man.
Yeah. And Starbinder.
Oh wow.
Starbinder on it.
I love how you did that on the back. That looks, I have not seen that.
Yeah.
That looks really good.
I was like, I need to put more stuff on it. Like, I actually need to put my name and like maybe stuff like, here's my website as well and where you can buy it. But at the moment, that's what they're at. And yeah, buy from me directly via my newsletter. Just send me an email and you get a bookmark for free. And I've got little stickers of that Cadonia symbol, the Eye of Eternity. There are stickers.
It's like Christmas, Mark. I didn't know we were gonna be talking about all this. Like,
all right, so these are all
awesome.
the things that I've got anyway. So there's
cool.
all this marketing paraphernalia, and hopefully, people get interested in the series and talk about it on Instagram and stuff, and post their pictures with all the things. So yeah,
I'm gonna have to make a t-shirt. I'll make a t-shirt when we head out to the Comic Cons, and we'll have to give some of those away.
Yeah,
I'll sport it.
Yeah, get some coffee mugs. With the Cadonius on it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm gonna totally do that. My buddy, he does that. People send them to him on his podcast. And I always listen to him on, on like Spotify, but yeah, he's like, yeah, I got my mug today. And on YouTube, if you watch it, he's got like whoever the author is that he's talking about for reviewing. And I'm like, that's a good advertising tactic for, for those authors. He's like, yeah, now everybody has mugs, but he has like stickers and stuff, he'll like, oh, let me see my notebook. And then, I'm like, oh, that's a good ploy. So yeah, I'm always telling him, I'm like, I'm going to have to do that for people that, I really like their stuff. Like you and like Christopher G. Brenning, I'll just have to fan club and do that for it. But well, that is super exciting, Mark. I'm so glad, to see so many cool things that you have. And I know we've had this, talk before, but I do really feel, in terms of in terms of covers and in terms of just different things that you're doing, I definitely feel that you are building your brand very well. So I hope
Thank
that
you.
other people see that, and you just propel. I have a really great feeling, book 2 in particular for you. I've just had
Yeah.
that feeling since I've seen your book and started talking on Twitter. I feel I don't know why. I usually don't feel it for people, but I feel like book 2's, for whatever
Yeah.
reason, is going to be
Okay.
it. I hope it's just
Well,
Starbinder
we're
personally.
working on it.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
I am very excited for it. But again, Mark, if there's anything, that I can do to help you out in any way, just message me. So don't forget, people in the audience, you can go back. Me and Mark had a couple technical difficulties when we went and filmed season 1. So we actually made a couple different episodes back to back to back. And we had quite a bit to talk about there in terms of craft and particularly things on book 1. So please make sure you also go back and either take a listen or watch those as well. Make sure you are going to Mark's socials in the description. Make sure you sign up for his newsletter. Obviously, like we were talking about, I've signed up for his newsletter. I don't sign up for many. So in our audience, I do want you to understand what I'm saying here when I say please sign up for Mark's. I don't sign up for many. I only sign up for certain people, and I did sign up for Mark's, and his is the only one that goes to my author email, which is my private email for all my fun stuff. Usually I send it to my other email. So make sure you do that for us. And I know you guys will not regret it. Make sure you guys also will be on the lookout in the next month or so, once I can get my other reviews done. Mark, again, is going to be my first summer read and review for the summer. So The Blood of the Spear. I've been saving it because I didn't want to, I think I've said this to you before, I didn't want to be distracted. And I wanted to be able to enjoy it. So I've been
Awesome.
trying to hold off. I
Good.
almost broke my vow the other day, and I was going to tear through it. I'm glad I didn't, because then I would have been stopped, and I don't want to be stopped. So I'm really, really excited. So I've been holding out for a while just with writing and things like that. And they keep staring at me from my shelf. So I'm really excited to get to it and to talk to you about it in our next interview. So again, if there's anything I can do for you, Mark, you let me know. And I'll be sharing, you tag me in whatever you got on, social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, stuff like that. And I will do my best to get everything out there for you, my friend.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Yep. Well, you have a great rest of the day there, Mark. And I will talk to you on social media, my friend.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. Great to talk to you.
Anytime, Mark. Anytime you want to come on, you come on. Okay.
Will do.
Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.